Hello friends, my name is Shayla and today I am here to wrap up the first half of my reading in the month of September. As you guys know, when I read a lot, I tend to break up my wrap-ups into 2 chunks each month. So I usually do the first half of the month and the second half of the month. So because I am participating in Contemporary-thon, which is going on currently, check out my TBR video for more details on that. I am wrapping up everything that I read up to Contemporary-a-thon, which started today the 17th, which means normally I would stop on the 15th and wrap up then, but I had an extra day on there. I didn't read too much more in that day, obviously, but it just makes sense to cut it there so I know exactly where to start for the second half of the month wrap up. So now that I have rambled on plenty, let's get into it. I do need to start off this video by mentioning a particular book that I actually read in the end of August, but forgot to include in my wrap-up, and that is The Wolf by Leo Karu. This is a dark, military-based fantasy. I really enjoyed this read. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I thought it was very well written. This is this author's debut work, so the fact that I gave a debut 4 stars is pretty rare for me. Usually my debuts sit at like 3.5. But I was thoroughly impressed by this one. I thought the writing was good. I thought the story was fleshed out very well. And I am really looking forward to more from this particular author. So if you, I'm going to give you just a quick little blurb on the back just to kind of quickly sum up what it is. It says, war, rivalry, and honor in a world where the fiercest enemies are always closer than they seem. So this one is very politically charged. So if you like political fantasy, this is definitely going to be right up your alley. Again, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. I highly suggest picking it up. Next, I'm going to quickly mention the volumes of manga that I read this month. Well, so far this month. I'll have more in the second half, obviously, but let's just go ahead and start with those. So I have volume 4 and volume 5 of Wake Up Sleeping Beauty. There's one more volume to come out in this one, which is coming out in a couple months, I think. But yes, this is a paranormal romance manga. I'm not going to tell you what the paranormal aspect is, as that is a huge spoilery plot point for the series. So I'm not going to tell you exactly what it entails or anything, but we follow the very sweet couple that are Shizu and Tetsu throughout this novel and their friends and family along the way as well. It is so fun. It is so sweet. I highly recommend checking out this series as it is a short one. There's only one more volume, as I said, so there will be a total of 6 volumes, so you're not even looking at a huge commitment with this particular series, so I highly suggest picking it up. Next, we have one of my most anticipated releases in the second half of the year, and that is Volume 9 of Ancient Magus Bride. Now, those of you who are familiar with the anime, this is the volume of manga that concludes everything that is included in the anime. I really love this volume. It's one of my favorites. I feel like so much is wrapped up so nicely. I'm really looking forward to the next arc of this story. I cannot wait for the author to continue on with this series because I am absolutely loving it. Chise and Elias are my precious little babies, and I love them, even though Elias is, you know, a monster in his own right. I don't even care. I love them. I love this story. I love this world. I cannot wait for more, but I have to wait 6 months to read more, or I have to learn to read Japanese before then, which is not going to happen because it's a very complicated language. So anyhow, yes, I am anxiously waiting with the rest of you, so yeah, here we are. Next up, we have one that might surprise some of you, and that is Pokemon Adventures Volume 2. As you guys know, I didn't particularly love Volume 1. I ended up giving it 3 stars. In Volume 2, I feel like the story flushes out a little bit better. I feel like we get a better feel for the world and the story, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I enjoyed this quite a bit more than the first volume, so maybe I was just in a better headspace when I read it this time. I don't know. But I do know that I enjoyed the second volume considerably more than the first one. I feel like we really get a sense that this is a real world, not just this TV, everything's perfect fantasy world. This gets a little more dark, a little more gritty, and I have to say I liked it. So next up, we have Assassination Classroom Volume 4. As you guys know, I am working through Assassination Classroom right now, and I am loving it. This is a sci-fi based manga series where an alien teacher with tentacles is put in a classroom where the kids will earn a certain amount of money and split it between them if one of them ends up killing the teacher by a designated date in which he says he's going to end the world. So it's a fun little like suspense sci-fi comedy kind of series. There's a lot going on in this one. I think it's really fun. You have a lot of character growth. You have a lot of just fun, and you learn a lot along the way. I think it's a blast. I know that this can only end one of two ways, and I'm going to bawl and cry by the time I get there. I know that because I'm an emotional person, but that doesn't keep me from reading it, and I am excited to continue. The last volume of manga we've got in this particular wrap-up is Volume 7 of Overlord. I am really loving working my way through Overlord. It is a little bit more of a violent series, but I do really enjoy it. I feel like the violence is a little bit easier censored in the manga format as opposed to like the anime. But I do have to say I really love this story. I really like the story arc that's going on right now. It's challenging characters to grow, to see if they can grow as they are trapped in an MMORPG. And, well, it's like a dive MMORPG. Anyway, yeah, that's besides the point. Anyway, so basically our main character, who plays the villainous overlord of this series, is trapped in this world. He can't leave, and it's just this fun adventure. He's challenging his guards, who are NPCs, to mature and grow throughout the last couple volumes, and I've really been enjoying that particular style of arc, and it's been really fun. I highly suggest picking up this series if you like video games at all, especially fantasy-based video games, something like WoW or any of those like immersive kind of games. I think you guys will really get a kick out of this particular series, so I highly suggest picking that up. Alright, so this next pile, they're all from the same series. I'm only going to really individually pull out one, but I want to talk about all of them, and that is the next chunk in the Dark Hunter series by Sherilyn Kenyon. I did quite a bit of reading in this series, as you can tell, because we've got 6 books in this series that I've read in the last 2 weeks. I'm kind of a glutton for my own punishment in that way. Most of those were 4-star reads for me. I really enjoy the world and the series, but I have to pull out Acheron. This is a 5-star read. You could read this as a standalone if you wanted. It makes more sense if you're already attached to Ash, as I was as I read it. Ash is a very pivotal character in the entire Dark Hunters world and series. So to finally get his backstory, to get his motivations in life, and then to see him find his partner, his real life, forever style kind of partner, I laughed, I cried, I wanted to tear my hair out, I wanted to kill people. I felt every range of emotion humanly possible as I read Acheron. And I highly, highly, highly suggest reading this series, but this book is so good. I took my time with this one. It is 800 pages. It's not a wimpy little book. But normally on something like this, it would take me maybe 2 days, but it took me 4 to 5 because emotionally, the journey that you go on with him is so gut-wrenching at most points that it's hard to read it any faster. At least it was for me, because I kept reading something and then I would be so devastated that he was treated this way that I would put it down. The second half of the book I basically read in one sitting, but the rest of it I took slowly. I digested everything. And I just love Ash, and I love his story, and I just love it. Connor from Connor O'Brien has asked me to read the Chronicles of Nick, and especially after reading this one and what's going on in the Dark Hunter series right now, I think I will go back and read the Chronicles of Nick. It is a YA series, so I'll probably slowly work my way through that one, but Ash and Nick are good friends, and it's really interesting to have all those connections. I think I will really thoroughly enjoy the Chronicles of Nick now that I have read so much of the Dark Hunter series. But anyway, Connor, I think you should read this one. I think you'd really like it, even though it's tough and hard to read. Go read it. But yes, highly suggest picking up Acheron. Next, we're going to talk about my buddy read with April over at April Sarah. As you guys know, her and I try to buddy read at least one book a month, and the book this month was Rose Daughter by Robin McKinley. I have not read this particular book before this reading. It's one of April's favorites, so she was down for a reread of it. So we decided to read this one. I read it in one sitting. I loved this. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I do have to say I enjoyed Beauty by Robin McKinley a little bit better, But I did really still enjoy this one. I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. I do think if you want a good retelling, Robin McKinley's a great author to check out. Most of her stuff's a little bit older, so sometimes it's harder to track down. But if you want somebody who's going to do a retelling right, definitely check out Robin McKinley. I thoroughly enjoyed all of the books that I've read by her. Next up, I have two Tessa Dare novels that I have read recently. The first one being Romancing the Duke, which is a booktube darling at the moment. I really enjoyed the characters in Romancing the Duke. I thought the story was really fun and really witty, and I love how it challenged the views of that particular time period, and I highly suggest picking it up, as well as The Duchess Deal by Tessa Dare. This is a fake marriage trope, which I absolutely loved and adored. Both of these books, I was in stitches laughing so hard. Tessa Dare is an author that I've become a huge fan of recently. I really enjoy her work. I enjoy her wit, and these books are great because they're written in a modern language, but the jokes wouldn't make sense in the modern world. They only make sense in this world, in this time period. So even though the language is really easy to read, you still get those timely jokes, and it all just fits together in this pile of magic that is these books. And I have to say, I thoroughly enjoy her as an author. I'm definitely going to be working through her stuff pretty frequently for the next little while. Romancing the Duke I had on ebook, and this one I had a physical copy of, because after I read this one, I went to my Kindle store and bought as many as I could for as little money as possible, but I do plan on completing out my collection of hers over the next little while. So yes, Tessa Dare is an author I highly suggest. Romancing the Duke got 4 stars, and The Duchess Deal got 4 stars. We're almost there, guys. 2 more books. I know this is a bit lengthy, and I'm trying not to give super long descriptions of anything. But this next one we're going to talk about is The Loveliest Chocolate Shop in Paris. I mentioned this in my Contemporary-a-thon TBR. This is a book where it takes place in modern times as well as in the past. You follow 2 different couples who end up connected by the end, obviously. But this is about a young woman who suffers an accident in the chocolate confectionery that she works in the U.S. and ends up losing a couple of toes through this accident. She loses all confidence. She doesn't feel like she can go back to work. And an elderly friend of hers suggests that she goes and lives in Paris, works in this particular chocolate shop of an old friend of hers, and kind of starts over. This is a beautiful coming-of-age story as well as a love story. I highly suggest picking this up. I think Jenny Colgan's great. I'm going to explore more of her books in the future. This was the first time I've read a Jenny Colgan, and I really enjoyed it. So I will definitely be picking up more of her works. I know she's got more of the novel with recipes kind of series. This is one of those, and so I think I'm going to pick up 1 or 2 more in this series to see if they're just as good or if it was just this one particular novel that I connected with, because it takes place in Paris, and I'm borderline obsessed with everything to do with Paris. So that might play a big part in it, but I'm not 100% sure, so I do want to check out more of her work. And last but not least is another author that I have recently started reading and enjoying, and that is Jamie Maguire. So this is Beautiful Disaster. This is her most popular novel to date. There are a lot of people on BookTube who were reading this as it came out, and I really enjoyed my read of this. Now, this book is a beautiful disaster. There are a lot of things that are kind of messed up going on in this story, and she doesn't pull any punches and she doesn't sugarcoat anything. You have 2 people who have really bad and toxic backgrounds who find each other, find themselves attracted to each other, realizing that they're toxic for each other and trying to stay apart, but like moths to flames, keep coming back together. And this was a really interesting read for me. The reason why I picked this up is I read From Here to You earlier at the end of last month, and that's her newest release. But it mentioned the Maddox brothers, and this is the first book featuring one of the Maddox brothers and their stories. So I really wanted to check these out because those characters very much intrigued me. And so I really enjoyed my read of this. I will be reading, this one is Abby's perspective, and then the other book that I've got on my TBR for Contemporary-a-thon called Walking Disaster is actually Travis's perspective. So I'm really excited to read his perspective because he intrigued me a lot. So I really want to read his perspective. I enjoyed Abby's perspective, but I do want to hear Travis's as well. So anyways, I ended up giving this 4 stars. It was very well written, very well done. But like I say, there's some messed up stuff going on in this book. Nothing is sugar-coated. And the relationship is pretty toxic. So if you're sensitive to that kind of stuff, like, go ahead and pass on this series. I do think it's a beautiful disaster to read this. Like, I was so mad at the characters at certain points that I'm like, what are you doing? But at other times, I could really appreciate that the author didn't pull her punches. And I really just enjoyed this for what it was. So again, I do highly suggest picking up Jamie Maguire's writing. And Beautiful Disaster was a beautiful disaster for me. And I gave it 4 stars. So friends, those are the 18 things that I read in the first half of September. As you can see, Smutty September is going very well for me. I'm pretty happy and reading a ton, and I'm really just excited and happy about it. So guys, let me know in the comments down below what your favorite read so far this month is, and I will see you guys in the next video. By the way, if you're new here, I'm Shay. Welcome. I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and click the little bell icon so you know when to come hang out with me. See you soon. Bye.